Hi, this is Michael William Denny of ThunderShamanism.com, and today we're going to talk again about Vedic astrology. In the previous video, we talked about the difference between Vedic astrology and Western astrology, and why, in my personal experience and opinion, Vedic astrology is not only much more accurate, but there are many more tools within it that you can use to actually help your life. I mean, people look at, they open the paper and they look at the Western astrology, which goes on the sun sign, which changes every 30 days, whereas in Vedic astrology, it gets down to the exact minute. When you get down to the exact minute, you learn a heck of a lot more about who you are. So I wanted to talk about mantra. Even a lot of Vedic astrologers don't give out precise mantras. When you go to a doctor, and you've got some kind of physical problem, if he's a good doctor, he's going to give you the precise medicine that you need. If you come in and you've got some major illness and he gives you some aspirin, well, maybe the aspirin might take the pain away, but it's not going to fix the problem. Mantra is the same way. Most people, I have to say this, most people are doing mantras that are not working for them. At best, they might be general mantras that can work. For instance, like Om Namah Shivaya. Anybody can do that mantra, and it will definitely raise your awareness. And, eventually, if you pick that one mantra, 20 or 30 years later, that mantra is going to do everything for you. But there are other mantras, that people are throwing around that are totally, sometimes ineffective, and sometimes they can be downright damaging. Let me explain to you how. First off, let me say, don't worry about it. The universe doesn't punish people for being ignorant. So, the worst that can happen, you might not get anything. But once you know what's going on, the universe then holds you to what you know. So I'm giving you some knowledge now. When it comes to your Vedic chart, you're going to find out which planets want to work with you and which planets are representing your challenges. So, for instance, let's say in somebody's chart, let's say Saturn is really giving them a hard time. And they start chanting to Saturn during the wrong period. What's going to happen is Saturn is going to bring up all of these karmic blocks to get in your way. Now, eventually, that's the kind of the backwards way of doing it. You're going to be working through a lot of karma, but it's going to make your life very challenging. So let's say Mars is working in your chart to counteract the negativity of Saturn. So what you would want to do then is you would want to chant to Mars. Either chant to Mars directly or chant to a deity that is represented. Now here's the other thing. There's a lot of mantras out there that are associated with Hindu deities, but each deity vibrates with certain planets. And so, if you're chanting to the wrong deity, and again, Kali is Saturn. Let's say somebody, again, chants to Kali because somebody says, oh, Kali is the mother and she's the, well, you're going to bring up all that Saturn energy, and it can be very challenging. So you need to know what planets want to work with you. So now it gets even more in depth. Once you know what planets want to work with you, and you now have to figure out which deities are working with that planet. So to do that, you can look at a chart, and you can see what deities want to work with a person. And you can see what deities are going to bring up the most challenges. So now you have to align, let's say if chanting to Mars, you have to align a Mars deity with the right syllable for the name. For instance, Mars Bagalamukhi. So let's say the syllable Ba works for you. Well, then great. You can chant to Bagalamukhi. Now Bagalamukhi wants to work with you. You've got Mars working with you. Now we're getting down to a really effective science. But you could pick a Mars deity, and let's say it doesn't work. Let's say, Sharavana Bhavaya, Shah. That doesn't work for you. Well, you're chanting to a Mars deity, which helps, but the first syllable of the deity's name isn't jiving with you. These are the kinds of things that are very important to understand. And then you get down to somebody's name. In order to understand what your true spiritual name is, you need to look and see what pada, which is 1/4 of one 1/4 of one star constellation, your name, your moon sits in. And remember, each star constellation, there's 4 of them in each sign. So you're chopping up the sign into 4 sections, and then of those, those quarter sections, you're chopping those up into 4 sections, and your moon is in one of those sections. That's where what your name should be. So you go off the mantra based on that, and that will tell you, there's a way to find out which first syllable in the mantra. So you got to know the planet, you got to know the deity, you got to know the first syllable of the deity, then you've got to know your name and the first syllable of the mantra that goes with you. And then we have to look at which house it's going to affect, which is how many syllables in the mantra. So you see, it gets very detailed. Now, the good news is, if you got somebody who knows what they're doing, you can narrow it down precisely and you get immediate results. Immediate. The first time you chant the mantra, you're going to feel all things go off, if it's done right. And so this is the kind of thing that's interesting about mantra. Now, I'll do that in another video. We'll talk about disease in another video. So, again, if you want a reading from me, click on the link below, and I can give you a reading. We can talk beforehand. I can find out exactly what you want to figure out, and then we'll go from there. I recommend doing celestial qigong. If you want to really get the most out of a mantra, you need energy. Now, qigong combined with the right mantra can expound the power of the mantra hundreds of times. Now, if you do it wrong, you could hurt yourself. But if you do it with somebody who knows what they're doing and they align it the right way, it can empower you incredibly. So I suggest you get celestial qigong. The third thing that I'm telling people about is that I'm taking 5 apprentices. And so I'm working with people, whoever wants to work with me, I'll work with whomever. And what we do is we work once a week for 1 hour. And then we can decide after a little while whether or not, we're a good match or, those kinds of things. Once I have 5 apprentices that are absolutely rock solid, that I know are committed, that are, supposed to be working with me and have the ability and the talent and the knowledge and the maturity and all that, from those 5, I'm going to look for 2. And those 2 people I'm going to give everything I have to, if it's within my power. So go ahead and click on apprenticeship. Now the next one, we're going to talk about disease and how mantra can be helpful to curing disease.